We will learn about the Hill's equation today. So Hill's equation tells you, let us say that there are two molecules, right? And one molecule is either activating the other molecule or repressing the other molecule. What do I mean by activation and repression? A molecule is the activator of B, which means that if A is up, if the concentration of A is up, the concentration of B should go up, right? So how does this happens in biology? It happens through the transcription. So A is the, so it happens in following manner. Let's say this is your factor X. Okay, this is a protein. It's a protein. So we are talking about what is activation and repression terms that I'm using. So this is a protein and you have your DNA here, okay, and there is a gene over here. Let's say that gene is Y. Okay. So this is the coding region of gene and transcription starts from this place here, right? And this transcription will need certain transcription factors like RNA polymerase 2, the general transcription factors like the RNA polymerase 2, which are needed for most all the genes, right? And you have specific transcription factors which will determine which genes to be activated in response to what. There has to be some specificity, right? Let's say you get the COVID-19, the coronavirus, and it will activate certain genes related to your immune system, right? So you need to have specific factors which will tell the gene Y to get activated in response to a virus or any other signal. So the specificity is brought by certain transcription factors which are specific ones. So let us assume that X is a transcription factor which is needed to activate the gene Y in response to something, right? So it has to come and bind here, right? So this is your X binding here. And the moment it binds here, this gene, this DNA will open up and transcribe. It will make mRNA, right? Not one copy of mRNA, but several copies of mRNA. Okay. And let us assume for the time being, for simplicity, that this RNA will make protein through translation, and that is proportional to number of copies that we have at mRNA level. If there are 4 copies there, we'll get 4 copies of protein Y. Okay, this is your protein Y protein. So what at the outlook, what is happening? You have a X protein which is upregulating. So there is an arrow there, the Y protein, right? So if we don't get into the details that we have here, what actually is happening, this protein is simply upregulating the Y protein. So more number of X would mean more number of Y, right? If X is not sufficient, then Y will not be transcribed. So you need certain critical concentration of X to activate Y. Now, what is that concentration? How is Y dependent on X? What is that function? Okay, so we need to find a function which is, let's say, Y function, which is the function of X, concentration of X. But this function is unknown to us, right? This is what the Hill's equations does. It tries to find out what is Fx. Okay, so I gave you the example of activation. You can think of an example of repression also, right? You can have a gene over here. Let's say this is Y gene, and it is actually transcribing by default. It happens for the genes like some of the housekeeping genes or many other genes which are having open chromatin. This region is always open, there is no nucleosome. So a lot of factors, transcription factors come here and keep transcribing this gene. Okay, this is happening. However, there is a factor X, which is not the activator now. This is a repressor now. This is a repressor. So if this binds here, okay, this activation stop, which means that now we have a relationship which is inverse. If X is high in amount, it is going to repress Y, right? And again, we need to find out what is f of X for the repression. This is for activation, and this is for repression. We need to find this f of X. All right, so that's what the Hill's equation does. It will try to find, it gives us a relationship which can be used to calculate f of X, right? So let's look at the Hill's equation now. We will derive the Hill's equation. Now, here is the thing. I will take the example of repression. Why? Because it's easy to derive this f of X for repression, but that doesn't mean that we cannot derive it for the activation. It can be derived, and I will give you the citation where to look for, where to read about it. But it is a little bit more lengthy, the derivation. So we will learn about the f of X for repression. All right. So let us look at the repression. X is a repressor, right? X is a repressor. And that's your gene Y. And if this site here, this is a small chunk of DNA where X binds. This is DNA protein interaction, right? This is a small chunk of promoter region, which is the transcription starts, right? Where X is supposed to bind. There is a binding site on the DNA, which is recognized by ATGC, a particular sequence of ATGC, which will make the binding site of X. So if that site is open, then my activators, right? Let me write the activators here. These are my activators. These are my activator A, which can be RNA Pol 2 and others, right? A and A prime and so on, right? So if this is open, they will go bind there and this will transcribe, right? However, if this red site, DNA site, let me write it as D. This is my D site, okay, DNA. If X is bound to DNA, if X is bound to this DNA, okay, then these activators cannot bind there and it will stop the repression, isn't it? So that's the dynamics we need to work out. So basically, forget about Y, it is taken over by D. Basically, we can summarize the whole dynamics here, kinetics between X and D. If X is binding to D, there will be no transcription downstream. If X is not binding to D, D will be open. It is a naked DNA, and then activators like A and A prime will come and bind to the site and transcribe the gene Y, right? So we need to look at the interaction of X to D, right? X to D, if they are interacting or not, right? Okay, so we can actually get f of X. So remember, our objective is to get f of X. Now it will depend upon the transcription of Y gene will depend upon how often the D site, DNA site is free. It is not bound by the X. Okay, so we need to find a probability. So here is the thing. We need to find a probability. If I can find a probability that D is free, which means that it is not bound by X, right? then I can find out the f of x basically. So this can be given by following equation: how often the D is free and out of the bound DNA, which is dt, right? The dt is the total DNA, which is, so D is the free DNA. This is your free DNA, open DNA, not bound with X, and dt is basically your total DNA, total, which can be given by dt is equal to free DNA plus bound DNA, bound with what? X, right? So now I'm using the concentration terms. So dt is the total concentration of DNA, which is the free DNA plus the bound DNA, and the bound DNA is given by the complex XD, right? So when I use square bracket in chemistry, it means a complex. Right? So if we can find this, now we do not know this. If we can find this, then this is simply proportional to f of x in terms of x, of course, right? So that's the objective here. So let us look at what happens when x strikes to D. Okay. If x is striking to D, they can make a complex, right? They can make a complex, right? So the correct way of writing this is x plus D is giving you the XD complex, right? And let us say this happens with it will depend on the rate of striking, how often X and D are striking with each other, right? So if they are striking more often, then probability that it will make a complex is high. So we say that K on is the strike rate. And how often, with what rate are they falling off is given by K off. That will tell how often this complex is actually dissociating. So this is fall off rate. Right? So we need to focus upon K on and K off, right? So this is your key equation. So rest of the derivation is just centered around this equation only. Okay, so let's write the differential equation. So change in x can be given by dx by dt. What will be it? This is going to be change of x Anybody? Epidemic models. K on times what was x times x minus K of K on times x times d and K off of complex, right? There is a difference between when I write xd here, this is the concentration of x times the concentration of d, this is the concentration of the complex. Okay, that's why we use square bracket. Now the simple thing is that now again we have some simplification. We say that what happens at this steady state. Now you see that this assumption comes again and again in the network dynamics, that we make an assumption that reactions are at steady state, which is not entirely true, but let us go by that assumption. So this becomes you can take this on the other side. This is K of okay, now XD, we already know what is it. XD here can be written as dt minus d, right? Isn't it? So you write it in dt. So this is your K of dt minus K of d. So we need to take the d common, so this becomes K of times dt is equal to, we take the d common now, so d is here. Why are we doing this? Where are we leading to? Why did I take d common? Anybody? Anybody, why did we take the d common? Why it be, somebody wrote, why shouldn't it be k on x times d plus k? Why plus? Because we are looking at the change in x, right? Oh no, so this is not x actually, so that's correct. This is the product, which is the xd, right? This is going to be xd, change in xd. Sorry, this was Mithula's, but what you have written is that for dx by dt. So this is not for dx by dt. This is for the dx, the complex. Right? So Mridula, can you speak out? I don't understand what are you writing. No, the previous question that you wrote, this is actually, you wrote that won't it be dx dt? Oh, okay. So I think she wrote something, but I don't know what does it mean. So, however, at the same time, I recognize that we are looking at the change in y, right? Change in y, we are looking at dy by dt, right? Which is nothing but if we look at the complex formation, right? So we could write it at change in dxd. Okay, so that's what it is. The change in the product that we are looking at.
Sir, in the last one, won't it be k on into x plus k off?
K on what?
D whole into k on into x plus.
Why would it be plus?
The last one, the last line. K of dt is equal to
The
d
last
into.
line is K of dt. So this is dt minus d, right? So K of dt minus K of d. And then I took the K on xd, K on xd, and minus K of d. So I took the d common. So this is K on. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. So now that's not the thing. We will come to that. But what is the question here, Medula? Can you type it so that I can understand what is the question here? This is the change in y, right? Ah, okay. Okay. So that's fine. This is the change. So this was a minor error here. This is the, remember, this is the change in y, right? Which will be proportional to the complex formation, isn't it? So we write change in d, change in xd complex, right? So this was another thing that somebody pointed out. K on should be here. That's okay. So let's and then k off is here. That's fine. Now we are looking, why did we take d common? Because of this, we are interested in d by dt, right? If we can get that. Okay, so let's see what happens now. So we can write it as k of dt by d is equal to k on x plus k of okay, so we are getting inverse, but that's fine. We can reverse it anytime. So we got dt by d. We actually want d by dt. We will reverse it later on. So this becomes k on okay. In fact, what we could do is we could simplify it further from here itself. So what we do is the following: k of is equal to, sorry, k of by k on. If we take k on this side, then this becomes xd. Now this is a classic equation what I wrote just now. What is this? If you have this reaction in chemistry, what is this then? Yeah, so somebody wrote it, Vedula wrote it. This is basically your, what we call as dissociation constant, Kd. Okay, so this is your capital K equilibrium constant that sometimes you call it as. This is your Kd. So we actually don't need to bother about K on and K off now. This is nothing but Kd, right? So let's keep it simple. We continue from here to the next page now. So your Kd times Xd is equal to X times D, and this is your Kd times capital dt minus Kd times d is equal to Xt. Or we could write it as dt by d and take the Kd on the other side. Okay, so we got it already. So now we can write it as, reverse it because we are interested in d by dt, which was nothing but Ed, which was nothing but f of x, right? This is going to be Kd. This is nothing but your Hill's equation, but let us simplify it further. To get the typical Hill's equation, we take the Kd common the denominator, so this becomes x by Kd plus 1. So this is your typical Hill's equation now, which is 1 by x by kd plus 1. Okay, this is your f of x. Now, more often this is plotted as the proportion of the maximal possible rate of production, which is beta. So it becomes beta times this. So that's not important. Let us say we have scaled the maximal production to 1. So then this will be the equation. Okay, so if we have this equation, then if we plot it now, how would it look like? Let's say I plot the x versus fx here. Remember, this is repression, right? How would it look like? So this is, there will be a decline, some kind of exponential decline, right? So fx is nothing but your y, right? This is nothing but your y. If you follow this function, okay, now when will we get, let us say this, we multiply this equation, we look at the what proportion of the maximal rate does the f of x scale to, then this is nothing but your maximal production rate given by beta. Okay. So beta times the Hill's equation. So when do you think that half the production is reached? It's a typical chemistry question. When do you think the half the production will reach? Even if you consider this as 1, the maximum production rate. When do you think that it will reach the half the production? When x is equal to kd, right? Then this becomes 2, then it will be beta by 2. So when x is equal to kd, let us say I actually plotted not the x by kd, this ratio I plotted on x-axis. Then when this value is 1, which means that x is equal to kd, right? Then we reach the half of the maximal production. Okay. Okay, so that's the typical curve of Hill's equation. But there's one thing that we need to bother about. Let us say that your X molecule is not a monomer, it's not an isolated one transcription factor, and which indeed is the case practically. You generally have dimers, primers, or quadromers of transcription factors. The same transcription factor, multiple monomers comes together. They come together and make a complex which will function as a activator or repressor. So how do we take care of the multimeric transcription factor or repressor? So if you just need to do one thing, we put n here, x by kd raised to the power n, which tells n is the number of monomers. If that is the case, then if n is equal to 2, which means dimer, then this equation becomes like this. This curve becomes like this. Okay. If this becomes n becomes 3, then this becomes like this. Okay, so you can think of if you increase n, after a while we get a function which looks like a step function. Okay, and this change will happen right at the value 1. Okay, this is the value 1 here. Okay. So which means that if n is less than more than 4 or 5 or 6, then we can approximate the Hill's function to. So this is your Hill's function becomes the step function now, which means that either the gene y is on or off, right? Step function. So this is your on state and this is your off state of your y gene. So either the gene is off or on. So you might wonder that, what is the use of this information, the step function thing? It actually simplifies the simulation of gene regulatory networks. If you have a large gene regulatory network, where let us say this can be one example, X is let's say repressor of Y, okay, but Y is the activator of Z, and Z is the activator of many other factors, and likewise they are activator of other proteins. So you can get a gene regulatory network, right? So if you have a large such network, then this approximation of on or off, okay, only 2 state would help. okay, because it simplifies the calculation. Now you can, instead of using Hill's function or instead of using f of x in this form, you can use it as a binary function. Okay, so now you can write that f of x can be written as following. F of x can be written as beta times, or if the beta, you consider beta as 1 or scale the beta to 1, maximum value of 1, then you can skip this. But just a, now it's just a binary function, which is theta. Okay, theta when the x concentration is less than your KD value, okay, which is the repression threshold basically, then the gene will be up, right? This will give you one value, right? So this will give you one value, which means that the gene is on, okay? And if this is your for on, gene is on, right? If you have beta times theta is x is equal to greater than, now this is for repression, right? The gene is off. This is for repression. For activation, these things changes, right? So now for activation, f of x, you would need, so this curve would change for activation. So let me plot it here for activation. For activation, you get a curve like that, and this curve will become sigmoidal and then like a step function after certain n values, right? This is for activation, Hill's equation for activation. So this will be given by beta times theta. X is greater than KD, then the gene is on, right? And if it is less than KD, then gene is off. So this, let us say now you have two, for activation, you have two activators, X and Y. You need two activators, X and Y both has to be there, which means the relationship is and, which means that you need X and Y, which means that you can now write it as a product. If X is greater than K1 times theta and Y is greater than K2, then only the gene is active, right? So that's the simplicity we are arriving to by considering Hill's equation as Hill's function as a step function. Now I need to okay. So what is the Hill's function for activation? Is that's given by, I don't recall now. It's I'll give you the reference. Okay, so this is, I think, beta times x by something, x plus kd. I roughly remember this is the equation, but I will confirm this in the next class, or you can, I'll give you the citation. The citation is following. Introduction to Systems Biology by Yuri Alon. Okay, now another important thing. Now you might, so this help, this is instrumental. Hill's equation or the function, step function is instrumental. You only need to know the KD values. Okay, for many of the reactions, those KD values are known, and in many other cases, these numbers can be approximated starting with certain KD values and so on. And we can study the large network using the on-off states of the genes. You might, some of you might wonder, where do we study it? Let's say you are a synthetic biologist and you want to look at the production of your protein of interest or metabolite of interest. Then you first need to simulate using these equations, Hill's equations, or the binary version of it, and see how much do you need the signal to get the desired product, right? So you cannot directly go to the lab and start designing the circuits. You have to design your circuits on computer first and optimize the things that, okay, if I have this much input, this is the output I'm going to get, and which is well near to the required value, desired value. So you have to first study on computer your circuits. Okay, now the another important thing which is important in synthetic biology is the response time. You do not, let's say, you're looking at the production of something. You don't want it to, you don't want to wait for a long time. That should be produced very quickly. And you might say that, well, I can wait for a day. How does it matter? It does matter for certain contexts, for certain applications where you need instant production of the desired product. For example, some of the people, some of the students actually, they made a photographic bacteria, which means that you have a camera-like bacteria. If you throw a light on the colony of the bacteria, it emits a dye, okay, a black colored dye. So which means that if you throw light and it emits dye, you can use it as a camera, right? So that's what the typical manual camera used to be working. So they worked it out, and now if the production of this black dye takes a day, it's not an interesting camera. You want to look at your picture or whatever picture you're taking within few seconds or within few minutes, not more than that. And likewise, there are a number of applications. Many times the one product is needed for the input of the next production, and if this is delayed, the whole process is delayed, and so on. Okay, so response timing is important, and we will also see that it is to study of the response time in biological circuit is also important to study the evolution. Okay, why certain circuits are selected in the evolution while others are avoided. So response time is one constraint on which evolution is working. We will see a couple of those examples later in the classes, but today let's look at the derivation of response time. So let's look at the simple activation. X activates Y with the maximal production rate beta. Okay, so and let us say we will look at the degradation of Y to calculate the response time. We will look at the degradation of Y. Now you might say, why not accumulation of X? You can do that too, but for the ease of derivation, we are using degradation of Y. Now, what is, first we need to define the response time. Response time is the time taken to reach half the production. Okay, that's how you define the half-life also, or time taken to reach half of the degradation. Okay, so either way, if you're looking at the production trajectory, then when you reach half the concentration of the steady state, then you see this is my response time at the time taken to take half the steady state, to reach the half of the steady state. That's called response time. So degradation of Y will happen. How would Y will be degraded? Anybody? With certain degradation rate, right? There will be some degradation. Why? How would it be degraded? One is the simple degradation, right? Protein degradation. What is the other way of degrading Y is the cleanup of Y will also happen through dilution. You might wonder what is dilution. Dilution generally happens once you divide the cells, right? Cells are dividing from 1 to 2, 2 to 4, and so on. So if there's no new production of Y, Y will start diluting over the cell divisions, right? So there are two processes by which Y will be degraded, and let's say this happens with the rate alpha dilution, and this happens with the rate alpha degradation. Okay, so your alpha is equal to alpha dilution plus alpha degradation. Now the unit of alpha is 1 by time inverse of time. This is that many molecules per unit of time, basically. There's no concentration term here. So now if you look at the degradation of Y, dy by dt, rate of degradation of Y, This is going to be production. Now the unit of beta is concentration, whatever concentration, moles or whatever, per unit time. So there is a difference in the unit of beta and alpha. Beta minus alpha. So to get the correct unit of the degradation term, we need to multiply it by y. Okay, so that's the differential equation for the degradation of y, the rate of degradation. Okay, so now at steady state, let us say y was at steady state. Okay, so then we can write the equation accordingly: beta minus alpha y at steady state. It has reached a steady state. So this is the not the rate of degradation. This is the rate of change in y. Change in y. This is not the rate of degradation, because degradation will start once we remove beta. Okay, if beta is there, there will not be any decline. You will either reach the steady state or it is increasing, accumulating. Change in y, right? So YST becomes the concentration at steady state can be given by beta by alpha, which makes sense, right? This equation makes sense that if you have high production rate, high value of beta, your steady state will be higher, right? The steady state is going to be, this is beta is less here. If you increase beta, the steady state will also go up, right? If beta is high. So that makes sense, and inversely proportional to alpha, which is also making sense that if you increase the degradation, you can't reach a very high steady state, right? So let us say that this was the steady state, and now we remove at this value, we remove beta. Okay, we say that beta becomes 0. So beta is 0 at steady state. We stop the production. If we stop the production, alpha will take over, right? So if we say beta is 0 now, then this is going to start, there will be exponential decline, right? So we can write it as y t, we change this. There is a solution to this equation then, to this equation basically. And then this becomes y at steady state times e raised to the power minus alpha t. And since we have, so this is what we went on the top, we went to this steady state here, and then we said beta is 0. Now this will start declining like that, right? So we are studying this trajectory right now. This is what this equation is, okay? So if this is following this exponential decay, now since we have t here, and we know t is what? T is time here, but if we consider t as a t half, which is response time, which means that the time taken to reach half the steady state, right? So now if I replace small t with the capital T half, then I can write it as YST by 2, because I reach half the steady state, and I write T half here, right? Considering what the definition of response time is. Okay, time taken to reach half the steady state. So this is gone. We got a equation. So remember we are deriving what is our response time. So you take the log on the both sides. So what is your T half now, anybody? You take okay, log half on the other side, and okay, this becomes T half is equal to log 2 by alpha. Log of 2 by alpha. That's the equation for T half. Remember, this is a simple regulation. What do I mean by simple regulation? When I say X activates Y, okay, that's called simple regulation. Okay, what could be other regulations? There can be regulation where X is regulating itself, either repressing or activating. That's a different one. This is what the simple regulation is. Now you might say that I'm only talking about the degradation thing, right? So I calculated T half for this part. So I calculated T half for this part, but what about this part? What is T half here? Okay, it's going to be same. It's going to be same. Why? Because this equation for this trajectory would be symmetrical to this one, right? Which is a mirror image basically. So your YT for accumulation would become YST 1 minus E. So if you now solve this equation, okay, using the same thing, then you again get the same thing. YST is equal to YT is equal to YST for T half, right? And YST 1 minus E minus alpha T half. And so this is gone, this is half here. So 1 minus E minus alpha T half. And then you can see that this becomes half, 1 minus half is half, right? So we landed up to this equation again. Got it, right? So this is for accumulation or decline for both the trajectories, we get the same equation. Now this equation is, okay, so this equation is for simple regulation, remember, this differs for other regulation, we will see that. Now I have a question, what will be the cell division time? Okay, so let me not ask the question. The response time for stable protein. What will be this response time for the stable protein? Okay, so when we say stable protein, which means that I'm working upon alpha dilution only, right? But your alpha degradation, it's a stable protein, right? Which means alpha degradation is very, very low, right? It's not degrading. Let's say we say that this is approaching zero, alpha degradation is zero. So then it only depends on alpha dilution, right? And the dilution time would depend upon what now? It's only the cell division, right? So alpha dilution will only depend on cell division. So for a stable protein, your response time, which is log 2 by alpha, is equal to cell division time. Okay, cell division time, let's say tau, which is cell division time. So this is a important fact. Okay, for stable protein, cell division time is equal to the response time of the stable protein. Right. So in the next class, we will see that we will not talk about the simple regulation, but it was important to talk about simple regulation in order to derive some of the fundamental equation. Now in the next class, we will start talking about certain circuits which are selected in the evolution. Okay, and we will see that why are they selected in the evolution. The first of those we will learn about the negative autoregulation, which means that X is inhibiting itself. Okay, this is single edge, single node. Okay, this is selected in the evolution. Why? First of all, we need to see what is the evidence that this is selected in the evolution. In E. coli, what is the evidence this is selected in the evolution? Second thing, we will see why is this selected in the evolution. So we will look at the constraint or the physiological advantage of these loops in the next class. So that was all for the day.